everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast. Woohoo! 2022! Looking at you. Pew, pew. Choo, choo. New year. What you gonna do? 2022. All right, so our new season officially starts in March. We are getting ready for Market Research March in prep for Self-Tape May 2022. But I know that it's a new year. Everyone wants to get it going and have some inspiration. So I'm re-airing our last season's Get Your Shit Together series. This is several episodes. Lots of actors who did what it took to get their shit together and then they got working. So this is for you. They are so inspirational, so exciting. I love you. New episodes in March. I will talk to you soon. All right, get your shit together. I don't know what that sound is. It's like a explosion of joy for your new year. Get it. Book it. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 67, sending you to heaven. This year in your acting career, actor heaven, where all your dreams come true. We're going to make dreams come true, you guys. It's going to be amazing. So listen, we have had such a great season. Thank you so much, everyone who's been reaching out, who's been posting, reposting, active on social media. I love connecting with all of you and sort of chatting about what badasses everybody is. I'm so glad that you're all being so inspired. This week we have Jamie Baer. Jamie Baer, OMG, you're really gonna love this episode because we dish, you guys. We talk a lot about finding your casting, and really importantly, she talks about falling in love with your casting, which I think is a thing we haven't talked about on this podcast before. I don't know who's talking about it, but not just like, I guess this is my casting now. All right, I'll go take some headshots. This kind of sucks. I wish I was somebody else, but instead being like, oh, this is my casting. Oh, that's kind of amazing. Oh my God, I kind of love myself in this casting. And I think I want to do all these parts all the time. Like if you can follow your casting with passion and love, you're just like unstoppable. We also talk about getting the perfect coach for the right kind of material that you hope to be auditioning for, and how high the bar is for self-taping. I know everybody is like working really hard, but they just don't understand, I feel like, how high the competition really truly is. Just know by the time you're 22, there are already plenty of second generation Hollywood, shout out to those of you who are listening, hey, I love you, and people who've been acting since they were 4. Shout out to those of you who are listening, hey, I love you. But there is a skill set that is really refined for a lot of people in your competition. By the time you graduate from college, they've been doing it for 15, some of them like literally 22 years. They like popped out of the vagina and then they started doing commercials. That's real. This week, it's brought to you by Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. You will do your voice lessons. You will get your voice together. You will realize this is a craft of body and voice, and you will work both of them. Yeah, you will. I know it. Also, Dana Patrick, OMG, you know I love me some Dana Patrick. I shot again with Dana this year. I got some new commercial shots. They are soups fabulous. My agent loves them. Thank you, Goddess Queen Dana. Dana is great. Dana Patrick for all of your headshot needs. Dana. She's at danapatrickphoto.com. All right, you guys, I just got a self-tape. It's due Monday, so I'm obviously gonna go tape it, and then hopefully I book it. What? Book it. I hope you got one too. Book it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore from Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Jamie Baer.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
Hello. Hi.
I'm so glad that you decided to do this. We are meeting today because this first little mini season that I'm going to do in the new year is all about getting your shit together. And I want to just, have some information, some inspiration from people who have just over the last few years started working more properly in a way that has garnered them some results. And I've really watched as you have refined some casting choices, meaning like what you do with your outward appearance and then materials that match that. And then watch you also have extreme anxiety about the lack of speed in which the results were coming. And then recently, I think you added a really great piece to the puzzle, which was pairing with a really good coach for you.
Yes.
And what I love so much about it is that you paired with somebody, which is so cool, like this person used to book the roles that you're now going out for.
Right.
So this person really knows, like, your casting, your worlds, the shows, the showrunners, and then it's working. And, like, that just makes me so happy.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome. She's like, me too. Awesome. So why don't we tell everybody a little bit about your landscape? As you know, I like to sort of start with, are you union? Do you have reps? How many auditions do you get a year? Maybe pre-COVID versus post-COVID.
Sure.
And like, what does that all look like?
Okay, sure. I am union.
Yes.
And I have both a theatrical and commercial agent.
Do you have a manager as well, or just an agent?
I don't have a manager. Just an agent right now. In the last couple years, like, I'm finally starting to get some more theatrical auditions. Last year I counted, because I have my little chart. My spreadsheet. And let's see, let me open that real quick. Last year I had 7 theatrical auditions.
Whoop whoop.
And I was pinned for one of them.
I mean, that's great statistics, actually.
Yeah. And then this year I counted, so far I've had 8.
Great.
And
Great.
I think COVID definitely plays a role in that.
Yes.
But I booked one of them, a pretty significant one, and I've also gotten good feedback. I've been asked about my availability and stuff like that.
It's this interesting thing that they're doing, I think, like right now in 2020, where they're not telling you you're pinned.
Right.
And I think it's because nobody wants anyone to feel anyone has committed to anything.
Right.
And I think there was a lot of force majeure sort of stuff. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it means like when the COVID pandemic hit, people had already signed contracts. And when they signed those contracts, the studios and production offices had to honor those financial contracts. Yeah. And so now, unless you're like shooting next week, it just seems like nobody wants to be responsible for any of it.
Yeah.
So you booked one, and it's a really big win because this is your first recur.
Right.
It's not a bad one to have.
Yeah.
Is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Right? Your first theatrical credit is a recurring role.
Right.
On a major
Right, very recognizable.
Television.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, people are going to know who and what this is, which is,
correct.
You know, a lot of people book really large roles in movies like opposite Matthew McConaughey that then nobody sees and nobody knows what it is.
Right.
Or they book roles on shows that have a lot of cool cachet, but then it turns out nobody ended up watching it. And so, like, nobody knows what it is. So tell everybody how long you've had your commercial and theatrical reps.
I think I signed with my commercial, I know I signed with them first. And 2017 were my first auditions with them.
For commercials?
For commercials.
Great.
And I booked, it looks like the 3rd one.
Great. I mean, you guys. And are you able, because I know you're like me in that you can get neurotic. Are you able to see that and like see how that's great?
I am when I look at it. When I look at the spreadsheet and I'm like, oh, that's pretty good.
There's so much zen in the spreadsheet.
I know. You and I are so kindred spirits in that way.
It's true.
You know, I have different pages, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and like, so I signed on with them in, it looks like May of 2017.
Yes.
And I had 16 commercial auditions, 6 callbacks, 2 avails, and 1 booking.
That's very good. I mean, they say 1 in 20 is doing really well. And I just want people to understand, like, part of it is like, building momentum is always slow in the beginning. And so in the beginning, you maybe get 16 auditions, you get called back for 5, you are on avail for a couple, and you book 1. And then the next year, maybe you get 23 or 24 auditions.
Right.
And before you know it, 4 or 5 years have gone by, and you are going to get like to a place where you're getting 30, 50 auditions kind of regularly. And you might even be at a place, if you're so lucky, where your booking ratio is so good, you actually don't audition very much anymore because you have too many conflicts commercially.
I haven't quite gotten to that point yet. My most frustrating thing for me is that I booked a very large commercial campaign last fall. And it started playing in January. You know, I shot 9 spots and started airing the first couple, you know, in the beginning of the year. Then COVID hit. And they decided it's a little tone deaf for the situation. So I was released from that contract, which was very, very disappointing because I was like, that could have been huge.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. You know, a lot of people lost work due to COVID-related reasons.
Yeah.
Whether it's sort of a little indirectly like that or very directly, like, you know, they shut down production. Now, tell everyone your journey of the last few years. Let's talk about getting a little more refined in your casting. Did you ever feel a little bit conflicted about their commercial casting maybe versus their theatrical casting, if they were the same or if they were different? And you also worked in casting. You worked for a casting director here in Los Angeles. Tell me about like what that learning curve has been for you.
I feel like a lot of the times my casting for commercial is very similar to theatrical.
And did you always know that, or is that something you had to sort of uncover?
I probably did have to uncover it, but I don't know that it took very long to realize. I was like, okay, I'm very clear on what my type is. Like, I'm not ever gonna be like on this sexy CW show. That's just not my casting. Will never be. But that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Once I kind of refined and got excited about what my casting was.
And tell me about the process of getting excited about it, because I do think a lot of us have this experience where we want to be this one thing.
Sure.
And we're actually this other thing. And the other thing is great. I feel like everyone wants to be the bright, cool, fun, sexy girl, but even that girl wants to be like the gritty, drama, edgy, cool
It's
girl.
like everyone wants what they don't have.
Exactly.
I mean, part of it is learning to love yourself.
Yeah, because it's like your authentic self that you're putting out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, not trying to be anything other than who you are, but also finding like actors out there and watching their stuff and, you know, realizing how much you admire their work and would love to do that kind of work.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, if they're not in like the leading lady or man category, a lot of those actors are like our favorites. We just don't think of them first.
Right.
Like, I remember people telling me that I was like a young Joan Cusack. I'm like, I would die to be a Joan Cusack.
Yeah.
Right? It just like never was really brought up really. When I was in my 20s, I just really only wanted to be Cate Blanchett. Like, that's just like, and who doesn't want to be Cate Blanchett? And then once I was like, oh yeah, these sort of like oddball but strong and funny but dramatic roles that really have a full spectrum, I was like, yeah, no, that sounds great.
Yeah, like why hadn't I thought of that before? Because a lot of the times I feel like when you do really nail down and pin down your casting, it like,
or even just like your essence.
Yes. Yeah. That like ignites you.
But wait, Jamie, you sweet little mushy squishy face, you. Wait, I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's singinglessonslosangeles.com. I just can't keep saying it, you guys. You've got to work on your voice. I work on my voice every morning. I have to. It's too competitive. That would be like somebody who wants to be a prima ballerina, like working a lot on strength, but not working on flexibility. You have to do both. It's body and voice. He has all the virtual stuff set up and ready to go. He is super great. Whether you're looking for something for your singing voice, if you're a singer, listen, singers got to sing. Emotional capacity, vocal fry, whatever it is. Even if it's just like having your breath capacity and getting your articulation and all of that ready, set, and ready to go. I'm still looking at you, Brandon. He knows who he is. SingingLessonsLosAngeles.com. If you have any listener questions, please hit me up at 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hi, I'm Clara York, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I wanted to know what is the favored way to transfer our self-tapes, whether it be WeTransfer, Vimeo, Dropbox, Google Drive. And also, I wanted to know what's the best way to make your files smaller, and what's the best way to name your file. I know these are such simpleton questions, but I really need your help with this because I don't have anyone else to really ask, honest to God. And I really want my tapes to be watched. I feel like because maybe I have done things in the recent past that weren't perfect with my self-tapes, that they didn't get watched. So all of this would be fantastic to hear about. Thank you, Audrey. Bye.
Okay, so generally when you get an audition in a self-tape, they will tell you how and where they want you to upload it, whether that's EcoCast. Sometimes they'll have like a WeTransfer link that they want you to follow, and you'll upload it to their WeTransfer page. Sometimes it's Cast It. Sometimes your reps might have you send it in a Vimeo, password protected. Generally speaking, never put anything on YouTube, even if you put it on private or unlisted. Every time I give somebody something on YouTube in the past, they would like have a total panic attack. So no YouTube. But generally, if you're just giving it to your reps, I would say a couple of things that I have noticed. File size is important. You just have to read. You guys have to read the emails. And I'm here to tell you, I hate reading. Like I hate it. I would rather do almost anything before I would read anything, especially if that thing I have to read is instructions. I just like hate it. And especially if those instructions are anything technical related, I'm just like, you just said, please do your tiles. That's what it sounds like to me in my head. So read it slowly. I recommend getting the most recent iPhone, starting with just the ones with the 3 cameras on the back. They're really great iPhones. It's not cheap, but it is a really important investment into your career. And you can take that file. I have an app called Video Compress. It's Video Compress. I will send a link to it. It's a little gray little icon tab. We'll have that in the show notes, and you can compress it to the file size that you need. You can sort of slide it up to be bigger or down to be smaller, depending on what your needs are. And then for me, I usually take that and I airdrop it to my Mac. Not everyone can do that, but once I airdrop it to my Mac, that's when I change the name of the file in my browser. So I'll go into my Finder browser. I will look for the video that I just airdropped onto my computer, and then I will change the file, and I will put the file name according to what casting has asked for. I also got a little message from agent Jamie Hernandez, who's over at KMR today. We were chatting about stuff like this today, and she said that you can, on your iPhone, you can change the name of the file on your iPhone. So if you're using your iPhone or iPad to upload, there is an extra step to rename it before uploading. Once you record your audition, locate your video from Photos, click the Export button, click Save to Files, and then do the following. 1. Open the Files app on your iPhone or iPad. Navigate to the file or folder you wish to rename in the iOS Files app, and tap directly on the file or folder name. Use the keyboard to edit, delete, or rename the file or folder as necessary. And then tap done on the button to set the name and change. I'm going to link a little link to that too, you guys, so that way that'll be in the show notes if anyone wants to follow Jamie's lead on that. That'll tell you what to do. Dropbox, I don't love as much because there's like a thing on Dropbox where you can say like, send an email. And so like send the email. But some of us have our Dropbox under a different email than the email you're sending it to. And so then you have to ask for permission and it's just like a giant shit show. On Dropbox, you can click create a link and then you hit copy link. And that can be opened from anywhere. But if you do this send an email, that doesn't work, just so everyone's aware. A lot of people really like Vimeo just because it lets you know that it has been watched. You always want to have it password protected and on private. But generally, your agents and the casting office will tell you how and what they're looking for.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
You know, really understanding what your casting is and being excited about what that could be for you in your career. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it was a very important realization. And I think that's when I started working.
Yeah, and I remember like, you know, us just texting one day and you were talking about the commercials that you had booked and gotten close to.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, yeah, I think that this is your casting.
Yeah.
I remember you were sort of talking about like the visual of getting even more specific about that. And I had the same journey of like realizing I had to get like this triangle haircut and like these horrible bangs and like start wearing like just this clothes that like I just didn't wear in real life.
Yeah.
And like I want to be Stacey London. That's like who I hope to be in life. And then my casting for a while was not that.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about that because I was talking about how I had a similar journey and that it can change, right? Like my casting actually has evolved a lot. But I was booking commercials like what you were booking when I was your age of like, just kind of weird, just kind of special, especially with your hair. And you were like, you said something so awesome. You were like, what about my boyfriend?
Yeah.
Like, how is he possibly going to want to be with me if I look that weird? And I was like, yeah, I so get that. Like, I felt so glad that you have a boyfriend that you love and that loves you back. So like you could just sort of be like, this is what it's going to be for a second.
I know. And he's
so
now my husband. And so he was obviously fine with it. Sometimes he'll be like, have you ever thought about like growing your hair a little longer? And I'm like, no.
I can't. Not yet.
Sorry.
I will let you know in 5 years. That's hilarious.
not right now.
That's good. And then what do you say to people? Because I think this is common. I think this is a real thing where people want to gear towards their most fabulous selves and having to make a choice maybe that isn't that so that you can work and sort of like get your way in.
Well, I mean, the haircut that I chose specifically, I did not feel like ugly.
Great.
With
okay,
that haircut.
Okay.
Like,
you don't look ugly, for the record. You look super adorable.
I looked at haircuts for days and, tried to find something that would make me feel good in my life, but also be effective in my casting. So you do what feels good to you, but also is the right move,
Yeah. In terms of like your friends in production and your friends in casting, after having these conversations with them about maybe a direction you should lean into, did you start getting some positive feedback like right away, or were you getting any resistance, or what was that like after you sort of made a more specific choice?
I mean, I never felt like I was meeting any resistance towards it. One of my casting director friends was like, I don't know why you don't wear your glasses all the time. Like, that's so your casting. And that was a good realization moment as well.
Yeah, because your headshots that you went and got have these great glasses in it, and you have a few, and you're realizing like the possibilities of that accessory too.
Yes.
For you. And then did you notice any affirmations in terms of numbers of auditions once you got your shots, or correctness of audition type or bookings or avails or any of that?
I will say, I don't think it was all just one thing, because I was getting more refined on that kind of stuff once I had been with my agent for a year or two. So it was kind of like I was getting more auditions.
Mm-hmm. You were getting more specific.
And yeah, all at the same time.
Yes, yes.
And so it just kind of aligned.
I just love what you're saying, because I do think everyone's looking for this sort of like magical fix.
Right. There's not just one thing.
It's all of it.
Yes, there's so many moving parts.
Mm-hmm. I love when people are like, do I work on my audition technique, get new headshots, start doing casting director workshops, put up more work in class, or like shoot my reel? And I was always like, yes.
All of those things.
Which is why it takes a while.
Yeah, and I also like think it's important to stress that I don't want to give away my age in any way.
Yeah.
But I moved out here at 19.
Yeah.
I moved out here right after high school.
Yeah.
So I was still learning how to be an adult and function in a big city, coming from Oklahoma.
Yes.
And I was doing school online. I was taking acting classes. I was figuring out friends. And, you know, when people say, like, oh, how long have you been out here? I'm like, is that supposed to be a test of some kind? Because I'm like, it doesn't matter how long you've been out here, because I don't even count the first 5 years I was out here.
Right. And not only that, I will say also, like, you have lots of friends in the industry like I do. And and my experience is that it actually doesn't matter how long it takes you to get things together. Once you get things together, people know what to do with you.
Yes.
And once they know what to do with you, and then they know you and know what to do with you, you will start auditioning. And as you start auditioning, you get better at auditioning. And as you get better at auditioning, you start booking jobs, you know? Yeah. Once the ball is rolling, you have to keep it rolling.
Yes,
but
yes.
Nobody's like, you didn't get here till, I mean, it's a myth.
That is true. Earlier this year, pre-COVID, I went in for Barry, and it was the first time I had been to that office. And they really liked me. They asked me to read for another role while I was there.
Awesome.
It's not like they were like, where have you been? You know? You know what I mean? But, you know, because like...
It didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You were right for the role or you weren't right for the role. But you're here now. Yeah. So I want to talk about two different things before we get into this coaching. So the first thing I want to talk about is this thing that happened with you reaching out to another actor's manager. This has happened like a year and some ago.
Oh, yeah.
And the only reason I want to talk about it is because I think this is a thing that a lot of actors go through on both sides. And you guys chatted about it and everything's great. But it's like, I'd love if you feel comfortable to sort of talk about your experience of that.
Well, at the time, I was trying to reach out to a bunch of different managers. I was doing research on managers who I thought could help me in some way. And there was this manager that I reached out to, and I just said, I know you rep this person. I'm a fan. Basically, that's what I said. And then I got an email from that actor who I had never met in my life. In a rather aggressive email. Basically, like, how dare you use my name when reaching out? Like, I did not refer you to my manager and whatever. And I just immediately burst into tears.
No, I remember you were very triggered, and I'm also friends with this other actor. And so I knew both of you were sort of like triggered immediately. And I was like, you guys, instead of talking to me, need to talk to each other. Because you're both very reasonable, really great people who I think have a lot of the same like go-getter work habits. Right. And a lot of respect for each other.
Right. And we did. It wasn't really until, we had a little bit of a back and forth over email where I just explained, I was like, that's just not at all what happened. I don't know what your manager said I said in my email, but I was merely saying I was a fan So, you know, he must have good taste. That's basically what I said. And I was impressed by the way things were going for her lately. So that must mean that this manager is good at his job. And so that's all I said. And you know, here are my materials, whatever. And so, yeah, I felt very, very triggered by it because you know, I work in casting. I've gotten the stupid phone calls where I answer and they're like, yeah, how can I sign up?
Oh, God.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, you know, like how do I sign up to, you know, be on your roster? And I'm like, first of all, not how it works. Also, we're not even an agency. We don't rep talent. You know. Yes. So anyway, I'm a smart person.
Yes, you are. You're informed.
I never ever want anyone to think otherwise.
So how did it resolve itself?
Well, through the emails, it was kind of like a very cordial ending of, that's not how I meant it, and you know, blah, blah, blah. And then months later, we run into each other at a casting director workshop.
Hilarious.
And at the end of the workshop, I say, I don't know if you recognize my name, but I'm this person, and she gives me a huge hug.
What I love about this is this whole getting better representation thing, I know, is one of like the most horrifying and frustrating things ever. And especially when you're like trying to get a leg up. And then I happen to know that this person was talking on a lot of platforms, their social media and everything, about how great their manager is. And so what happened was, because nobody knows who the good managers are. Managers are like one of those things, they're just like, they're all kind of like ninjas.
They're very they're hidden.
Yeah, even the ones at the big companies, you don't know which ones are the ones that are like riding maybe the agent or talent's coattails versus the ones who are like really fighting. And we have all those stories of the managers who changed somebody's life. You know, like my manager truly changed my life and my career.
Right.
And so when somebody's like, my rep is great, then everyone's like, oh my God, your rep is great. And then reaches out to that representation. And then, because that representation's getting a lot of emails, the representation will forward them, often just to sort of be like, do you know this person? What's, you know, whatever. Right. And I think that then the actor who's repped by that person, they want to protect their relationship with that rep.
Right, right. And also I think it's important to realize, for me, or anyone in a similar situation, is it's not personal.
I love it. And what I love the most is it's like, and now you guys can see each other and hang out and have respect, and it all is fine, and everybody sort of like got through it. And so if you ever have something where you feel like you really fucked something up, just know, even though you feel triggered by it still, probably the other person has come to some peace and has moved on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I am the only one hanging on to this.
Well, but it happens to me too. It happens to all of us, where we feel like we fucked something up. Yeah. And then in our minds, they're like, I mean, just anybody but that Audrey Moore. She is the worst. And you're like, nah, just like, imagine they just think that all the time. You're like, no, that's definitely...
No one, first of all, no one thinks about you all the time.
Oh, so real. Yeah, so real. Yeah, that's so real. But wait, Jamie, you sweet little mushy, squishy face, you. Wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by DanaPatrickPhoto.com. That's DanaPatrickPhoto.com. I love me some Dana Patrick. You need only go on her Instagram to see all of the probably thousands of actors that have shot with Dana and are working on huge stuff. She shoots incredible photos. She is really inspired in the way that she works. I always show up with some ideas of what I want to be shot in, and she tinkers around and we play and we find some options. I just shot a new round of commercial shots with Dana. My agents love them. They were like, wow, these are great shots. And I'm like, I know, it's just me and Dana kicking ass together. So I really love Dana. She is great with all types of people. I know that some people are like, Dana's for beautiful people. And I just have to say, Dana's fucking great with beautiful people, but she is killer on anybody who's a little charactery, a little quirky, a little kooky. She loves a little adorable, little hip, little something. She really finds a way to like find the thing that is like uniquely special and really standy outy about you and helps you bring that to life. I couldn't recommend her more highly. DanaPatrickPhoto.com. If you have any listener questions, please call 667-ACTOR-70. Once again, that's 667-ACTOR-70.
Hi, Audrey. My name is Margot. I am calling in and listening in from Los Angeles, California. A little bit about me. I'm just a few days shy of being a year sober. So I'm having a lot of difficulty connecting with the roles I go out for and the characters I used to play. And I've got gorgeous headshots that I love, but I'm just not connecting with the girl in those photos anymore now that I'm sober. So my question for you is, how do I move forward from this? Do I start from the ground up? How do I have this conversation with my manager and my agents that those roles you were pitching me for, I just don't feel them anymore and I can't connect with them. I used to be such a big caricature, you get it, character actor, and now I just feel more grounded and more like a dramedy actor, you know. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice on how I can move forward, because, you know, it's going to cost a lot of money for me to start from the ground up with footage and stuff. So let me know. Thank you so much.
Hey, I love this question. This isn't a question that I feel like I've gotten before. You know, getting sober, first of all of the congrats to you. I talk about on this podcast all the time. My brother drank himself to death only a couple of years ago. And I understand the real one day at a timiness that occurs for people struggling with addiction and alcoholism. And so biggest cheers and congrats to you on that success. I hope you are taking it one day at a time and that you are continuing to celebrate your sobriety. In terms of your casting feeling like it's changed, I think the first thing to do, actually, I would start working with a coach before I would do anything else. I don't know this. I personally have very fortunately not struggled with addiction or alcoholism. But I do know that what I hear is that it changes sort of how you approach it all. So I think a really great place to start is actually to find a coach that you really can start to work out with. And doing coaching over Zoom is, I think, really valuable right now. A lot of auditions, a lot of callbacks, all those sorts of things are on Zoom. And so this is a really great way to start that practice. And I would take a lot of roles that you feel like in the past you felt successful in and redo them and do them anew. This happens a lot. I know a lot of people have children and they feel like different people. Sometimes somebody might experience a certain kind of loss in their life. If you guys haven't listened to Laura Spencer's episode, she talks about that. And you just feel like the kind of person you were, the roles that were interesting or exciting to you in the beginning are different than what you're interested in now. And I think it's better to get the evidence of what is working for you now through real practical exploration and then have some evidence to give to your representation. So if you work on some roles that you used to do and you work on them now in your sober life, maybe with a coach to help navigate you through them and find them, you may discover that it's kind of the same on you and you feel a little bit different on the inside, but the character still really sings on you on the outside. That's a possibility, and that's good information for you to note about yourself, whether or not it's all in your head or whether there's an actual change that people are seeing in terms of your acting and the product. You might also discover that, yeah, you're doing those roles, you're just doing them very differently, that the kind of interpretation that you're bringing to the role has changed. And if that's true, that's also really good information. And then you might want to search and explore some roles that are new, some things that are exciting to you now. If you were doing some more broad caricature comedies and now you're doing some dramas and dramedies, put some of those on tape and really work on them, really excavate that authenticity in those roles and genres. And then once you have some evidence together of some stuff that I think is really exciting to you and that you feel with your coach like, wow, this is the new me, this is what I'm doing, I would take that to your agents and have a collaboration and have a discussion. So much of this podcast, we're talking so much about the collaborative nature of an actor and their representation. And instead of saying, I'm sober now, so I don't like those roles, I would say, hey, so I feel like my casting has changed. If you want to talk to them about your sobriety, that's up to you. But if you wanted to and you wanted to say, I've started being sober since the pandemic and I feel a little bit different. If you don't want to say sober, you say, this pandemic has really changed me and I don't feel as attached to those roles anymore. I've been working with a coach for the last, 8 weeks. Here's some work that we've been doing together that I think I'm a little bit more excited about this. I'd love to have a conversation with you to see if this is an avenue that maybe we should start to go down. That way you're not bringing them a problem, you're bringing them some solutions. That's always a better way to communicate with your representation. And then from there, you can have a discussion of maybe they don't need new shots because maybe there's something in any of your old shots that will do it. Maybe there's something in your self-tape, they can send the self-tape along for a certain kind of role. I would just sort of do some investigation to make sure that, in fact, what you're feeling on the inside has really transformed and changed the kinds of roles that you're doing on the outside. I tend to notice from my friends that they feel dramatically different inside, and then they go take new headshots and they really just look exactly the same because how you internally feel versus how you externally feel is often the external difference is not as dramatic as you imagine it to be. So just some food for thought. I hope that helps.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, so I love to now move on to this thing that happened because we're going to talk about the coaching.
Yeah.
Where, maybe a year and a half ago, this group had reached out to me. It was like a self-tape place where you went and taped your self-tapes.
Yeah.
And this place had reached out to me, and they were like, I'd like to advertise on your podcast. And so I did my due diligence of making sure that I went and watched them do their self-tapes, right? Just to make sure that there's something that I could feel like, yes, advertise. And in so doing, I asked 3 of my friends to show up and do their self-tape and with a half-hour slot. And I gave everybody sides that I thought were right for them. And so it was one friend who's got a master's degree, hasn't booked a lot, but is fantastic. And then you were second, and I felt well, you have more experience, I felt, in the business and have worked and are in casting. And then the third person is a series regular, lead in feature films, all these things, right? And I did that because I wanted to sort of see how they handled various levels of people. And what I thought was so interesting was I said, get prepared as you would prepare. I haven't told you this, so this is going to be impressive information.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this is going.
So I was be prepared as you would be if you booked a half hour for a self-tape place to have them send off the self-tape. Jamie, it was one of the most eye-opening moments for me and so self-reflective for myself. The first person came in, and in the half hour just wasn't where they needed to be to feel like they were going to book that job. And then you came in and you had harder material for sure, but I also felt you were more experienced. And I also felt after that half hour, you were not in a place where you needed to be in order to book that job.
Right.
And the third person who works all the time came in, and I'd even given this guy 2 different auditions to choose from because he works a lot. And I was I don't know, choose whichever one you feel like working on, whatever about your time. And I would have booked him off of the very first take. And then the rest of the half hour, he was just sort of fucking around with it. And then I asked him, I was why did you choose this scene instead of the other one? And he said, because if you're going to practice, always practice on the harder material. And I remember thinking yes. And this actor, because he's a working actor, that's what he does with his time. So when he gets stuff to act, he acts. And you and this other actress, you have jobs and lives that require time. And what I loved so much was that all 3 of you are the hardest working people I know. All 3 of you. And that's why I gave them to you. I was here are 3 of the hardest working people I know, period. And I thought it was so eye-opening to me that you are so hardworking, and yet I thought you just didn't know what you needed to be at in order to book. And that said to me, I think that people don't understand how truly high the bar is. that it's not being good. It's like, yes, that is the role. Most people consider themselves like hardworking, and they are. And so it's not that they're not hardworking, it's that they just don't know not only what it takes, but what they personally need to close the gap between being good and proficient and being a person who books.
Right.
So recently, in the last several months, you started working with a coach. And I love this because I think you're just like a little mini her in so many ways. And that was such a smart pairing. So tell me about, how do you prepare for coaching now versus before, if it's at all different? And do you think the coaching has made a difference? Because I don't want to
Oh my
assume.
God, yes.
And if so, what is it that it's done for you personally?
I definitely think it has made a huge difference. It's streamlined and simplified the way that I prepare in a smarter way. You know, it was almost like I've taken so many acting classes, but at some point when you have taken so many different techniques, and at one point she said, forget about everything you've ever been taught right now.
Yes, yes. You're like, okay.
And I'm like, all right. She's like, no, because that's a learned bad habit. Obviously, I'm not going to name any names.
No, right? Yep. Yep.
But yeah, I do think that some acting schools do teach bad habits.
Well, I just want to clarify. I think a lot of acting schools teach actually outdated habits. I don't think it's that they're bad necessarily. It's like they're teaching acting techniques that were maybe great for auditioning for the theater in 1989. And were you working when you had an audition, or were you working even if you didn't have an audition?
At first, I was working even if I didn't have an audition. I feel like it got me ready for when an audition did come.
I mean, I just want to hallelujah, because a lot of times people email me and they're like, Audrey, I have this audition for this blah, blah, blah. In 2 days, who do you have that's a coach? I already think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, not the best place to start.
And the reason I feel like for me is that if you've worked with a coach before the auditions happen, then a few things happen. They know your habits. And second, sometimes you maybe are having a hard time with a moment or having a hard time personalizing something. And like a coach that knows you will be like, okay, Audrey, just pretend you're talking to your mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that's definitely what this is.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't have to be my mom. It can be my sister or best friend or boss or whatever, you know. But the point of view is in the right direction. And the like emotional state about the topic is pointed in the right direction if I point it towards my mom. And a coach that knows me well can help guide me, because they sort of know my issues, my hot moments.
We have our own lingo to know like what certain things mean, and
confidence maybe that it's working.
Yes,
right?
Yes. And the first time we coached for an actual audition was the one that I just booked.
See, I just love that. And how many privates had you done before that audition?
8 or 10.
I mean, I love you so much because it's like, yeah, you work together 8 or 10 times.
Yeah.
And you've taken all the acting classes.
Right.
And so it's like, we don't have an acting class thing. We have maybe like a specific audition execution thing.
Yes.
Did working with this coach before you had auditions, did it also give you, this happens for me, like it gives me a sense of confidence, like I'm setting the way for me to win. It's like I'm setting myself up to win because I'm investing the time, energy, and money as though I had the auditions already.
Right, right. And I will say some of these coachings before auditions were coaching for workshops, which were also a great way to just like practice coaching together.
Somebody had emailed me for a coaching recommendation for workshops, and I gave this person's info, and then the coach had reached back out to me and was like, are you telling people to come coach with me for a workshop? And that particular coach's philosophy was like, don't do that. That particular coach feels like you are paying a casting director to work with you, and that's that. And I was like, I totally respect your point of view.
Sure.
Just so you know, I don't agree. I had the best results once I started taking workshops seriously as auditions.
Yeah.
And I was coming to them as excellent as I possibly could know how to be.
Yeah, and that's not to say that you don't still then have a collaboration with that casting director when
just
you're...
like you do in an audition.
Yeah, but to make sure that you're at a certain level going in... An important thing to remember is that I did have years of training in a class before refocusing on this.
I so agree.
You still need that foundation.
Yeah, because we're talking about facility. Because auditions is facility on crack. Like, you got to be fast. So if you don't have the facility, you'll have an audition where you need to be quick and get all your beats in and land jokes and be ready to hold for laughs and all of that sort of stuff. And you have to have a facility that can already do that for then you to be able to do it fast.
Right.
And hopefully a coach will tell you. You got to trust that your coach is going to be like, you know what? I think you need more time in facility. You need to go back to class, do 6 months, twice a week. Go get some more time in facility. Do you have anything you want to say more about that?
Just that of the 2 auditions, theatrical auditions that I've gotten since working with this coach, I booked one, and the second one, they called to double check my availability.
Yeah, that's right. I want to just clarify, were these auditions that you worked on with this coach, were they self-tapes?
Yes.
Yes. And I just want to say, I think now more than ever, working with a coach on your self-tapes, like, why not set yourself up for the most success? So did you actually do the self-tape with this coach, or did you coach it with them and then go self-tape it?
That one.
That one. Love.
Yeah.
Love. Yeah, I think that's great. And I just also want to say this about that too. I talk about deliberate practice all the time, and a really important component to deliberate practice is that in the beginning, you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Like, you have this drive to, like, go forward, and then you're like, well, I don't have any idea what's happening here. And you have to sort of, like, get through that hurdle. So that's one. And two is that you don't just go see any person to help you. Hopefully you see somebody who has what's called a proven track record of success in the area in which you're trying to go. So if you're trying to go from actor to booking, maybe, let's say, comedy television half-hour roles, then hopefully you're seeing somebody who has a proven track record in getting people success in that area.
Right.
If you want to go from, say, half-hour comedy television, maybe you've done a lot of half-hour comedy, and you want to start booking drama, you don't continue to work maybe with your half-hour comedy teacher. Maybe now you start going to somebody, not just a dramatic teacher for coaching, but somebody who has a proven track record in transitioning somebody from a comedic career into dramatic success. And the more specific you can get with that sort of help and the success of that person's track record, you're just working with yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited for you. Okay, what is the best part about this business for you?
I mean, I don't want to, like, sound so cheeseball, but, like, exploring different characters.
I love.
Again, I feel like such a cheeseball even saying that, but it's true.
Yeah. What is the worst part about this business for you?
I guess the worst part is the lack of control.
Yeah, there's just no control.
None. And that's, definitely something that you have to come to learn. And really, it's a good lesson that 2020 is teaching all of us. Having zero control, and for someone who suffers from anxiety, that's huge.
Yeah, surrender, just constantly surrendering all the time. Okay, what do you wish somebody had managed to teach you or get you to understand when you were just a wee babe?
Just calm down, for one. And to focus on the foundation first. And that might be a job for income. So you could pay your bills. A foundation in your craft with taking the acting classes, but not necessarily being so in a rush to get representation and get to, it's not going to happen that fast.
It just doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's very frustrating. Like, I used to feel like the fact that I wasn't famous by 27. I really moved from New York to LA at 24. And I felt like the fact that I wasn't famous by 27, I was like devastated.
Right.
That.
Like you were a huge failure.
Yeah, 100%. Catastrophic disaster.
Yeah.
And I now think that that's hilarious.
And also to know that there are enough roles for everyone out there.
Mm-hmm.
God, I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah. I feel like I want to say to the young Jamie and to everybody out there who has anxiety as a part of their life is I feel like I want everyone to just know that that's all of us.
Yeah.
I've not really met an actor who's like, whatever, you know, it comes. It doesn't come, you know, just like, I think the thing about me is I'm just like super chill about it all. Just
Said
like,
no one
my
ever.
Career and the pursuit of this career, I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah,
you know, whatever happens, I'm down for it.
No one is that chill.
I have people that say they're that chill, but they're not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I also wish I had started therapy earlier.
Boy, that is coming up every single one of these things. How long ago did you start therapy?
This summer.
Because this is literally a pattern I'm seeing for everybody that I'm talking to in this.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, so when did you start therapy? And they're like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how long before starting therapy did you book? And everyone's like 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting to me because that was my experience also.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, any final words you have for anyone about the journey you've had? Because I just want to be really clear with everybody. Many a text messages from Jamie in panic. And so it is not like a easy floating along road.
No.
You know, it's hard work and frustration and then some payoff and then hard work and then frustration and then some payoff. So any final thoughts for anybody?
Be very careful about, you know, fear of missing out on things and what's yours will come to you. A quote that an old acting coach of mine said that I still like love today is whatever role you book was yours from its conception. Whatever roles you don't book was never yours to begin with.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we have Eden Mary Show. Eden Mary Show. He's just as happy as his name sounds. He's an incredible actor in the New York market and East Coast area. He is just kick-ass, takes names. He's an educator, first in the actual PS school system for a long time, and then he turned his dreams around and became a very successful actor and now works all the time. He's currently shooting a really huge recurring guest star on a show, and I am so proud of him. He talks about having a purpose, finding your purpose, the thing that gets you to just really do the work and do it outstandingly. I'm so proud of him. You're gonna love him. Very big thanks this week to this little Jamie Baer, my little squish muffin. I just love her so much. Jamie, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Anytime somebody like Jamie really gets their work and gets it together and starts seeing the results, it's just so magical. A win for one of us is a win for all of us. So congratulations, girl. You deserve it. Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign with you do with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing this season by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it. We are so excited to have you join our team this season. All right, don't forget your towel.